Hey everyone, and welcome to Novel with Me, the series which takes you on a writing journey from start to finish. Today we're moving away from the planning and moving towards the plotting of your novel, and we're going to start with plotting your novel, obviously. Yes, this part is more of a planner's than it is for pantsers, but I think even the latter can benefit from a few key plot points to have on hand for when they get to start writing. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the difference between plot and story. And yes, there's a difference, but the two go hand in hand when you're creating your story and creating your novel. You need both in order to fully realise your idea. The plot is what events happened, your protagonist's physical journey. It's the dangers they face and the struggle that they have to overcome. In its simplest terms, the king died and then the queen died. The story, on the other hand, is why the events happened. Your protagonist's emotional journey, their dreams and growths and motivations, their goals and their relationships. In its simplest terms, the king died, so the queen sought revenge on the people that killed him and died in the process. There are hundreds of different ways to plot your novel, and none of them are wrong. Now, not every plot technique works for every writer. It depends if you're a planner, if you're a pantser. It depends on how much life is kicking your ass at that moment. So today I'm going to break down some different plot techniques for you to walk away with and try. As a note, this isn't how to fully plan and structure your novel. That comes in the next video. This is just to get down your basic plot as a sort of roadmap for you to follow when actual outlining and structuring begins. Now for this, it's best to have some actual idea of what your plot is. Now, I can't give you all of those, but what I can give you is 5 ways to brainstorm ideas for your novel over here in this beautiful little corner. There we go. Brainstorming is a great way for you to figure out your plot, or at least figure out some plot points for you to connect at a later date. The aim here is to put all of your major plot elements into some sort of feasible order for you to work with. Think of it as the first draft of your plot in its simplest terms. Why do I keep saying that? Remember that your plot stems from your characters' dreams, it stems from their motivations, so keep that in mind when you're actually creating your plot or creating your plot points. Also need to remember that not every source of conflict comes from the villain or whatever self-proclaimed antagonist you happen to have. It can come from absolutely anywhere. Every plot is basically the same at its most basic foundation. We meet the characters, crap happens, more crap happens, and then everything's resolved. Or not. Your first step into plotting your novel is to figure out what crap happens, when it happens, and why it happens. Plot technique number 1, beginning, middle, and end. This is my fallback plot technique when I am struggling for whatever reason it is to either brainstorm or to actually plot my novel. And it all stems from the first proper plot structuring I did, which was the 3-act method, which I'll go into more in the next video. It's a really simple one, of course. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end, and you just need to decide what happens in the beginning, what happens in the middle, and then what happens at the end. The beginning is where we meet your character, and the character meets the conflict. The middle is your character reacting to and then acting against the villain or the antagonist. The end is your character defeating the antagonist or villain and resolving the plot. When I use this, I always use what I call the 3x3 method. There are 3 sections, the beginning, middle, and end, and I need to come up with 3 plot points for each of those 3 sections. So I come up with 9 plot points, including introduction, including the midpoint, and including the climax. 1 major plot point per section, and I will fill in the rest of it during my structuring phase. Plot technique 2, reverse plotting. Knowing your ending is perhaps one of the easiest and best things. Easiest and best is probably one of the best things that you should know before going into plotting your novel, because it is so much easier connecting all of the dots and creating these plot points when you know what they're going to lead up to, as opposed to writing your plot, putting all of these things in places, and then realising that once you've created an ending, the beginning and middle don't fit with the end. Knowing the ending before you start can help you set up all of the little details that you need in order for the end to make sense. By reverse plotting, you can start at the end and think of how your character got to that point. Some people find it easier to figure out how people got into a situation than figure out what situation follows the situation they've just been in. Plot technique 3, the zigzag method. This is a really, really simple one. Every novel has its ups and its downs, its highs and its lows, its zigs and its zags. So you just grab a piece of paper and you just draw a zigzag on it, like, zigzag. Yeah? You can put in as many zigs and zags as you want and then stick the plot points in. Anything that is a zig, which is up high, is high point or low point. Anything that is a zig at the top is crap that happens, and anything that is a zag, which is at the bottom, is your character reacting to the zig and planning ways to counteract the next zig. It's your character's downtime. You can do as many zigs and zags as you want. You can get rid of zigs and zags as you need to. It's just a great way for you to see the highs and the lows, the conflict and the resolutions of everything that happens in your plot. Number 4, and then this is one of my favourites because it's basically just asking and then. Just think of yourself as talking to a child who is constantly asking you the question why, and you have to on the fly come up with the answers to the most stupidest questions that could have started with, why is the moon round? Who knows where those kinds of questions can lead you if you just ask yourself and then. I always find that talking can help you figure out things that you wouldn't be able to figure out if you're just thinking them in your head. I know a lot of the time I've been stuck. I've started talking about it to my husband who's not listening because he's got his headphones on, and I'll be like, oh, no, it's fine, figured it out, don't worry. And then he'll look at me and be like, what? Having no idea. I was just speaking to him, but it works because I sort of talk myself out of the corner. All I do is write down a few words describing the plot point and then ask myself what happens next, writing down the first thing that comes to mind. Sort of like quick fire questions. I can give an example for this one. Yay! We'll take Harry Potter because I think Harry Potter is one of the easiest novels to break down into any sort of plot structure, because is there anybody who hasn't read Harry Potter or seen the movies or has at least sort of knows what it's about? Harry Potter finds out he's a wizard, and then he went to magic school, and then a troll attacked, and then he found out about the Philosopher's Stone, and then he played Quidditch, and then he defeated Voldemort. I suppose he defeated Professor Quirrell, who was housing Lord Voldemort, and then he went home. You get the point. After you've plotted your novel at this stage, you can go back, you can make any changes that you want to. Coming up with some of these plot points, you might have thought of other things that you want to include in the novel, so you can write those down and add them into your plot as well. You can change the plot as you go into the structuring phase. I always make sure to sort of get my major plot points where I want them and where I need them before I hit the structuring stage, however, because I find it a lot more difficult to make the changes to the plot I want if everything is sort of set in a structured way that's going to mess up with a scene over here or a scene down there. It'll mess with my order, and I don't like that. I also plot this way because I find it's easier for me to start with a basic plot and then fill in the gaps while I structure it, rather than sit down and try to plot and structure an entire novel all at once. I don't have the time, I don't have the patience, I don't have the focus. I like a jumping off point. It might take me a little longer, sure, but I'm not going to stress so much about it. I believe that making small goals and progressing quickly through them is better than making big goals and then struggling to get them done. It's also great for people who have a busy life, who perhaps don't have time to sit down for extended periods of time, who find it easier and more productive to work in small chunks. But hey, every writer is different. What do I know? In the description box below is a Just the Basics blog post which goes over everything that I've talked about in today's video, and a writing worksheet so you can get to work on planning your novel. plotting your novel. Damn it. Novel With Me returns next week with story structure or plot structure. We're going to go even deeper into our plot. We're going to have some fun. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Good thoughts and happy writing.